Hello students, very good afternoon. So today we will continue where we left off from the last class from human health and disease. So let us start our session. So before we start, I would like to launch a technical poll. Please let me know if there is any problem with audio and video. I would like to know if my audio and video is clear. Students from YouTube, you can put your thoughts on chat box, like if my audio and video is clear, so that we can have a flawless session. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll now. So let us go on with the session without further delay. All right. So here we have the first question of the day. Identify the incorrect statement. Pneumonia is a bacterial disease. Ringworm is a fungal disease. HIV is transmitted by mosquito bite. Cancer is a non-infectious disease. So I will launch an MCQ poll. All right. You can answer this in 1 minute. It's a very easy question. Identify the incorrect statement. Pneumonia is a bacterial disease. Ringworm is a fungal disease. HIV is transmitted by mosquito bite. And cancer is a non-infectious disease. Okay. Come on, students, make it fast. We have 20 seconds of time. All right, students, it's almost time. So let us end our poll and see which is the right answer. Okay, it's a very easy question. You might have already guessed the right answers. Okay. So among the following statements, pneumonia is a bacterial disease. Of course, it is a bacterial disease. Why? Because the causative agent of pneumonia is Streptococcus pneumonia, and Streptococci is a bacterium. Okay, ringworm is a fungal disease. Yes, it is a fungal disease because, okay, Microsporum is one of the fungi that causes, ringworm. HIV is transmitted by mosquito bite. Okay, this is a very interesting point. Many of you might have had this doubt in your head. Why do AIDS, or HIV is not transmitted by mosquito bite? Okay, or is it transmitted by a mosquito bite? You might have this doubt. Okay, so let us see what is the reality here. Whenever a mosquito bites a person and withdraws the blood, okay, now it has taken the blood from one person. Okay, let us tell that this is person A. So from person A, now what does the mosquito have done? Mosquito has drawn blood. All right. So now this mosquito from person A, it goes to person B and bites him again. Okay. When it bites him again, now when the mosquito bites the other person, does the mosquito inject the blood? That is the first question. Okay. Actually, it does not inject the blood. What happens when the mosquito bites here is when the blood enters the gut of mosquito, okay, it enters the gut of mosquito. There is no way that this blood returns back, okay, to the, oral organs of the mosquito. Okay. So you might ask me a question. So what about dengue or what about malaria? Right? So in these cases, the mosquito, when it bites, we get the disease. But why not in HIV? See, for a HIV to be transmitted, the body fluids have to get exchanged. So once the blood has gone into the gut of the mosquito, there is no way these viruses can migrate to the salivary glands, okay, of the mosquito. And when it cannot migrate, even if the mosquito bites the other person, there is no way this virus is transmitted. So that is why HIV is not transmitted by mosquito bite. So our answer, the incorrect statement in this question is HIV is transmitted by mosquito bite. And actually, it is not. Cancer is a non-infectious disease. It's definitely true. Okay, cancer is with respect to an individual. Okay, due to many causes. We'll talk about it. Okay, fine. Here you have the second question. In humans, common cold is caused by. So you have your options: rhabdovirus, okay, then retrovirus, rhinovirus, and baculovirus. So you have your options. Let me launch a poll now. Okay, an MCQ poll. Okay, students, you have a minute to answer this question. Let's make it fast. It's very easy because we already discussed about this topic. You're off way up. Come on, students, make it fast. Let's answer this question. It's easy. And students from YouTube, you can put your answers in the chat box. Okay, I'm watching you. All right, your time is almost up. Can we end the session? I mean, like, can we end the quiz? Okay, so here we end the poll. Let's see what are the right options. Okay, human cold, common cold is caused by. Okay, before we look into the right answer, let us see and analyze each and every option. Rhabdovirus causes rabies. Retrovirus is an example for HIV. Rhinovirus is the one that causes common cold, whereas baculovirus is a plant virus. Okay, so our option for this question too is option C. Okay, all right, students. So let's start our session by rediscussing from where we left off from the past class, that is ascariasis or helminthic diseases. Okay, so ascariasis is a parasitic infection, okay, which is usually affecting the intestinal part of us, okay, usually the small intestine part of humans. So what happens? Ascaris lumbricans is a pathogen, okay. So usually whenever we ingest unhygienic food or the food which is not washed properly, like fruits, vegetables, okay, or when you play in the sand and you do not wash your hands and eat, without washing your hands and maintaining the proper sanitation. So that time what happens, some of the eggs that are present in the soil already are transmitted, okay, into your body. Okay, it enters through your oral cavity and it goes and settles in your stomach, and from stomach it goes back to the liver. Okay, from liver lungs, and it again comes back to the small intestine. In the small intestine, it starts reproducing and starts producing eggs. Now the eggs are eliminated through the fecal matter, and as the fecal matter contaminates the soil, and again if you eat this unwashed vegetables or fruits or without washing your hands, there is probability of you getting ascariasis. Okay, now ascariasis is a quite problematic disease, and it is the ability of this organism to go and attach to your intestinal walls, okay, through the powerful hooks they have. Okay, so now what happens, a person who already have this parasitic infection suffers from or shows the following symptoms, like internal bleeding. Okay, the patient will show internal bleeding, muscular pain, fever, anemia, that is loss of blood, there is very little amount of blood in the body, and blockage of intestinal passage. And some people even show the signs of the bleeding while they defecate. Okay, when they are defecating, there is problem of bleeding. So one of the major ways we can control this parasitic infection is by maintaining sanitation. Okay, sanitation with respect to the intake of food is very primarily important. And second one is the right social behavior. That is, we cannot go and defecate. Okay, public has to be educated that open defecation is a very serious problem to be addressed. So they can use toilets, okay, all the time, so the for defecation or any of the for excretion. So that would be a very viable option for controlling such diseases. Okay, so we have the next disease, that is filariasis, okay, or filarial disease, which is which is also known as elephantiasis. So you might have heard about this disease elephantiasis because of its popularly visible symptoms of having morphology, which resembles elephant legs, right? So the pathogen that causes this elephantiasis or filariasis is filarial worm called as Wucheria bancrofti or Wucheria malayi. Okay, so mode of transmission is by a mosquito bite called as Culex mosquito. Okay, so when a mosquito bites a person, okay, now the mosquito goes and it goes and survives in the lymphatic vessels, usually at the lymph nodes, especially in the lower limb region, okay, near your legs. So as it goes and settles down and incubates in the lymphatic vessels, now once it starts becoming active, it causes chronic inflammation. That is, there is a lot of inflammation or swelling in the legs. Okay, the legs get tremendously swollen. In some cases, it is one leg, or in some cases, it is both the legs. Now, the person who have this filariasis, they peculiarly show one of the signs, that is their genital organs or the testicles also swell up along with the limbs. Okay, and it gets completely deformed. So this is the one of the major symptoms, recognizable symptoms of filariasis. Now, the way the disease spreads is quite interesting. Why? Because usually the filarial worms enter the mosquito's gut only at the night time. So in the daytime, these filarial worms are very deep within the body tissues, and they don't come up only at the night time. Okay, they are very biologically adapted to the mosquitoes behavior. So we know that mosquitoes are very high in number at night. So they come and as they withdraw the blood, the filarial worms come rise up to the surfaces of the blood vessel, and then it is easily transmitted. Okay, so it is one of the very worst diseases a person can suffer from. So one of the ways is to control the vector population. Vector population is your mosquito. So how do we do that? We avoid any of the stagnant waters, using mosquito nets, using mosquito repellents. Okay, and maintaining proper sanitation around the house, and checking out with the municipality if they're responsible enough to cover the drainages, and if the drainage supply is very proper within your surroundings. Okay, social responsibility can save many lives with respect to vector-borne diseases. Okay, next one is a fungal disease. Okay, fungal disease, the people usually who live in hostels, right, and the people who live in dorms, or where there are like a lot of people living together. Okay, one of our hostels are best examples, because I've seen many cases of this ringworms. Okay, so what is this ringworm? Usually the fungal pathogens such as microsporum, okay, microsporum, trichophytum, epidermophytum. Okay, these are the organisms that causes this disease called ringworms. So now what happens in ringworm? So they go and infect usually the epidermal surface, that is a skin surface, such as groin areas, or between the toes, or near the limb. Okay, the hands. Okay, so what happens here? The people who usually are infected are the one, either they're infected by soil or by using the combs, towels. Okay, if they do not maintain proper sanitation in drying their clothes properly. Okay, such as usually the coastal regions where there is a lot of heat and moisture. So that helps this fungi to grow and proliferate very highly. Okay, so that is why we have to maintain proper hygiene, maintain our own clothing, dry the clothes properly. Okay, dry the body properly after taking bath. Okay, so clean the body well regularly, and wash legs and hands after you play around, for example, after sports or something like that. Okay, so you can moisturize your body to avoid this fungal growth. And and always use your own personal things such as combs, okay, clothes. Do not try to share it with your friends like socks. Okay, very, very important in avoiding such diseases. So what are the symptoms for the people? It is very, very irritating diseases. Why? Because your skin gets very dry. When it gets very dry, it starts itching. When it starts itching, it starts forming lesions. Look at the lesions that are formed in the head, on the face and the groin areas and between the toes and everything. So it does not look, it does not look better, isn't it? It's very, very, it looks very disturbing. So now what happens? It might appear on nails, it might appear on the scalp of the head, and usually it is accompanied by intense itching. So one of the ways to prevent, I have already told you. So this is about ringworms. And please remember the names of the pathogens, that is Microsporum, okay, Microsporum, Trichophyton, and Epidermophyton are the organisms that causes fungal diseases, okay, especially ringworm. Fine. One of the very, very important concepts that we have to discuss in disease, especially under protozoan disease, is malaria. Okay, why malaria is such a important aspect or important case that we have to know. If you see the number of cases that the malaria has claimed the lives of the people across the globe, it reaches over millions. Millions of people from the third world and the second world countries, especially in the tropical regions like South Africa. So, okay, and you can take South Africa is a very big example for malarial outbreak. India, okay, India is also one of the major countries to suffer from malaria. So malaria claims a lot of lives. That is why we have to understand about this disease that might help in saving lives. Okay, so what happens with malaria? Who spreads malaria and what is a vector that is related to malaria? We'll see here. So malaria is caused by a pathogen called as Plasmodium species. So this might be Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium malariae, Plasmodium falciparum. Okay, so these are the organisms, okay, that causes, okay, or protozoans that can cause malaria. And especially Plasmodium falciparum is a causative agent for a more serious malaria, which is malignant malaria. Okay, malignancy is something that can spread from one vital organ to other vital organ, such as brain, okay, or respiratory organs, okay, or even your elementary canals. So that is why it is very, very dangerous and it can be very deadly whenever a person is having falciparum infection. Mode of transmission is again a vector-borne disease, and it is by a female mosquito called as it is a mosquito called as female Anopheles mosquito. Okay, so male do not spread this disease. Remember that. Okay, male have nectar glands. Okay, and they feed on nectars. Okay, from the flowers, whereas the female mosquitoes, they feed on blood. So that is why they become one of the primary vectors for transmission of disease. All right. So what are the symptoms of malaria? Symptoms of malaria is one of the very important symptoms that we can recognize is at one stage of malaria, malarial cycle, it starts producing a hemotoxin. Hemo means blood, toxin means poison. Hemotoxin called as hemozyne. So as the hemozyne is released into the blood, a person starts experiencing certain symptoms such as chills, high fever. Okay. See, when we talk about high fever is showing a peculiar behavior where there is recurrent fever. For every 3-4 days, the fever goes up and it comes down again. Again, it goes up and it comes down again. So, and eventually it can lead to a death of an individual. So we'll talk about how a person can go into severe phases because of malarial infection. To understand that, we have to understand malaria's life cycle. Okay. So let us understand the life cycle of Plasmodium. So first, what happens with respect to malarial plasma? First, let us say that a mosquito, okay, mosquito bites a human. Okay, mosquito has bitten a human. When a mosquito bites a human, okay, let us say that this mosquito is carrying this infectious malarial spores. Okay, they have an infectious malarial spores. Now, once this mosquito goes and bites a human being, now, as I told you, infectious spores, these spores we called as sporozoites. Okay. So where do these sporozoites are present? These sporozoites are present in the salivary glands of mosquito. So when they bite the mosquito, from the salivary glands of the mosquito, now the sporozoites are injected into the blood. Once they are injected into the blood, these parasites, which are sporozoites, they reach the liver via blood. Okay, through using our circulatory system. Okay, they reach the liver. So in hepatocytes, that is the liver cells, what they do is they use the liver cells to reproduce asexually. Okay, they reproduce asexually in the liver cells. Now, once they reproduce asexually in the liver cells, their number gradually increase. Correct? No. So as the liver cells burst, okay, the plasmodium are released into the blood. Okay, all the new cells that are formed are released into the blood. Now, as these new cells are released into the blood, again in the blood, they undergo asexual reproduction, okay, using RBCs. They use our red blood cells, okay, as a factory for producing more and more of, this, what do you call this plasmodium, okay. So through, they use RBCs and undergo asexual phase and they reproduce asexually. Here, again, the RBC cells, they burst open, they're releasing some of the hemotoxins called as hemozyme. So this hemozyme causes the cyclic fever and other malarial symptoms. And here, as they keep on reproducing asexually and they increase the number, they undergo a sexual phase where they produce this gametocytes, male gametocyte and female gametocyte in the blood, okay, using RBCs. Once the gametocytes are released in the blood, okay, now what happens? A mosquito comes and bites this infected person who already has malaria. As it bites the person who already have malaria, now what happens? The gametocytes are drawn from the mosquito as it sucks the blood. Correct? No. So once this mosquito bites and sucks the blood, the gametocytes, what happens? It enters the gut of this mosquito, gut, right? The stomach of this mosquito. Once it enters the gut of this mosquito, the alkaline gut environment of the mosquito facilitates the fertilization process. Okay, these gametocytes will fuse, okay, and they fertilize there. After the fertilization process, these gametocytes, okay, will develop into sporocytes. The sporocytes from the intestine, they migrate all the way till the salivary glands of the mosquito. And if the mosquito bites another human, the spread of malaria, the cycle of malaria continues in the new person where the mosquito has bitten. So let us take the summary of what happens with respect to plasmodium life cycle. Okay. So first, what happens? We have a mosquito and the mosquito bites a healthy human. As it bites a healthy human, from the salivary glands of this mosquito, what escapes? The sporozoites, right? The sporozoites, see here, the sporozoites of the mosquito, from the mosquito is injected into the blood, into the human. So once the sporozoites are released, it reaches the hepatocytes or liver cells. Okay. In the liver cells, what happens? They use these hepatocytes as the factory for, dividing, right? They use this as a factory for dividing. In hepatocytes, you can see here, okay, hypnocytes are, hepatic dormancy. What is hepatic dormancy? Once the sporozoites infect, okay, the liver cells, here, what happens? They are resting for a certain period of time, which we call it as hepatic dormancy. Once they finish their resting phase, once they start adapting, now what happens? These sporozoites, okay, they develop to form something called as merocytes. Okay, they divide and form something called as merocytes. Okay, so the merocytes are produced in the liver cells, and the liver cell which has these merocytes are called as liver schizon. Okay, this is called as liver schizon. In liver schizon, the merocytes are released. Remember this, it's very, very important. I will repeat again. When the mosquito bites, okay, they release sporocytes. The sporocytes through the blood, they reach the liver cells. In the liver cells, they undergo a phase of resting. This is called as hepatic dormancy. It is also called as hypnozoid. Hypnozoid is resting. Now these hypnozoid, they start dividing and produce something called as merozoites. These merozoites are produced in a hepatic cell, and the hepatic cell which has merozoites are called as liver schizont. Okay. So after these merozoites are released, okay, now what happens to these merozoites? The merozoites goes and attacks the erythrocytes, that is RBCs. Okay, they attacks the RBC. In RBC, what happens? There is this merozoite will become trypnozoite. The trypnozoite, what it does is it creates, okay, it forms erythrocyte schizont. Like you have hepatic liver schizont, no? Like similarly, we have erythrocyte schizont. So erythrocyte schizont, they have this new plasmodium, which are released by the rupture of erythrocytes. As the rupture of erythrocytes take place, more and more plasmodium is increasing. At this stage, hemozyme is released in the blood, and at the same phase, they undergo a sexual phase where using these erythrocytes, gametocytes are produced. What are the gametocytes? We have male gametocytes and we have female gametocytes. And again, when a mosquito bites an malaria patient, these gametocytes are withdrawn, okay, or drawn by the mosquito, and it enters their gut. Okay, within the gut, these microgametes, that is male gamete and the female gamete, use this gut environment of the mosquito, okay, and they fertilize there to produce something called as zygote. Okay, the zygote that is produced by the resultant of fertilization, now it develops into an immobilizable or movable ookinete. Okay, it can move. Okay, ookinete is in the mosquito's midgut. So this ookinete, okay, will develop into oocyst, and the oocyst will burst open, releasing the sporocytes. The sporocytes reach the salivary gland, okay, and mature there. When they bite the other human being, the next phase of malarial infectious cycle begin. So this is about the life cycle of malaria, and you have to remember this. Okay. And the next disease we have to study is amoebiosis. What is amoebiosis? Amoebiosis is also known as amoeboic dysentery, which is very, very deadly. So now what happens? The pathogen that causes this disease is called as Entamoeba histolytica. So Entamoeba histolytica is transmitted through a vector, okay, that is called as housefly. Okay, usually they are the mechanical carriers, we can tell. So these houseflies, when they sit on the fecal matter and then they come and sit on the food and water, okay, that is when these pathogens are transferred from the fecal matter to the food. And when you consume those food, now what will happen? They will go and they will they will infect your small intestine. Okay, so that will lead to some of the symptoms like constipation, that is difficulty in excretion, excessive abdominal pain, there is cramps. Okay, and the stools are the stools have excess mucus as well as blood clots. Okay, it is quite a severe disease. That is why it is always said open defecation is very, very dangerous for society. Can lead to several infections without our knowledge. Okay, and it might lead to severe problems. Okay, always it's bad whenever you have certain diseases like this without your awareness, right? So how do we avoid amoebiosis? Just do not eat outside food. That is the best way you can avoid amoebiosis. Second one, avoid open defecation. Okay, public should be told to avoid open defecation. That is the second thing. And the third thing, always maintain sanitation. Okay, always maintain sanitation. And here we have the next question before we go on to the next topics. Which of the following is not correct with respect to malaria? Sporozoites multiply in blood. Malignant malaria is caused by Plasmodium falciparum. RBCs rupture and release hemozyme, which creates chill. Female Anopheles mosquito is the vector. All right, students, so let's launch the poll now, and you have 1 minute to answer this question. Okay, so let's see. Come on, make it quick. It's very easy. We just discussed this topic now. Let me move this. Okay. Yeah. Which of the following is the correct? Okay, is not correct with respect to malaria. Sporozoites multiply in blood. Malignant malaria is caused by Plasmodium. Okay. And Plasmodium falciparum. RBCs rupture and release hemozyme. Okay. And then which can cause these symptoms. Female Anopheles mosquito is the vector. Come on, students, it's almost time. We are almost at the end of our 1 minute duration. Let's see if you have the right answer. I'm going to end the poll now. Okay. From the following statements that are given, okay, let us take a look at them. The first statement, that is sporozoites multiply in blood. Do they multiply in blood? Is it right? Definitely no. The sporozoites multiply, okay, in liver cells. Correct? No, hepatocytes. So the option is wrong. Malignant malaria is caused by Plasmodium falciparum. True. RBCs rupture. Yeah. I'm extremely sorry, students, because there was a small technical glitch that has caused this problem. Okay. So give me 1 second. It would probably take a minute to sort this problem. All right. So we'll continue. Uh, let's see if the problem gets fixed. Okay. Fine, people. So as I was saying, one of the ways to control any disease is by prevention and awareness. So one of the ways to do it is by personal hygiene. Regularly take bath, use use some of the products, okay, such as moisturizers, okay, and keep your body dry. Don't keep it very dirty. Okay, wash your hair regularly. Use oil, okay, to avoid any of the microbial infections in the scalp. Use your own personal things such as combs, socks. Okay, do not wear footwears of others. Okay, so that will help you to prevent many of the diseases. Next one is use clean drinking water and avoid any of the outside foods as much as possible. I know that cravings are one of the biggest enemy of man. That is why we have to have food discipline in order to prevent any of these diseases. Okay, so next one is public hygiene. This is such an important aspect with respect to our behavior. So you might have seen some of our people who are surrounding us, either we know them or we don't know them. Either they're spitting, either they're urinating in the public, okay, or they are just dumping all the waste, domestic waste, or any of the factory waste or industrial waste into the open environment. or even the municipality is so irresponsible that they dump the waste, okay, public waste in huge landfills. Okay, so these are very big problems with respect to the diseases. So let us see how we can maintain public hygiene. First one is we have to be responsible enough for proper disposal of wastes and excreta. Always use toilets. Do not open defecate. Okay, or do not encourage open defecation. Always be happy, or always be enthusiastic to educate people irrespective of what the outcome is. Okay, next one is periodic cleaning. You have to use cleaning disinfectants of water reserves, especially like tanks, okay, storage tanks, or any pools, okay, or cesspools, or any of the storage tank. We have to clean them regularly because there is more chances of these larvae that can use this environment for increasing the disease. Next one, avoid any contact with infected persons and their belongings. Okay, especially with respect to pneumonia, or when they have common cold, or any of these when they show symptoms, do not touch them. Even if you touch, like, make sure that you sanitize regularly and avoid as much contact as possible. Okay, next one, use standard practices in hygiene, like do not in public catering especially. Control elimination of vectors. For example, you can use some of the methods, like you can spray some oil on the stagnant water to prevent any mosquitoes, okay, laying the eggs. Okay, and second one, you can use certain species of fishes that can eat the larvae of mosquito. Okay, make sure that the houses are covered by mesh, which can prevent mosquito entry. Use mosquito repellents regularly. Okay, educate people on using more of mosquito repellents as much as possible. Okay, next topic is how do we control and eliminate vectors. As we are talking about, use regular cleaning of households and coolers. Avoid stagnant water around you. Use mosquito nets. Okay, spraying insecticides or ditches, in the ditches and drainages and swamps. You might have seen government doing this regularly. They use this gas sprays, right? So that is one thing. Next one is provide doors and windows with wire mesh. Okay. Next one is introduced larvivorous fishes. As I was saying, Gambusia is one of the fish that can eat the larvae of these fishes, of these mosquitoes, and prevent their proliferation. So these are some of the ways you can prevent some of the deadly diseases like malaria, filariasis, dengue, okay, as well as chikungunya, okay, which are highly problematic for any of the common man. All right. So one question, for many people, we think that vaccine is bad or antibiotics is bad. We have to be open to, in certain cases at least, whenever we have some of the very severe diseases like cholera, smallpox, diphtheria, pneumonia, and tetanus. So such diseases, when they occur in man, it is very hard to cure them, and they undergo a severe physical and mental trauma with respect to the symptoms of this disease. So it's better to be aware, and it is better to encourage people for vaccination, vaccines and immunizations. So vaccines and immunization at right time, okay, for example, if you can take polio, right? So we are given up to 5 years. So this is very crucial. So taking the polio vaccine, or taking the diphtheria vaccine or smallpox vaccine, they prevent this disease when we grow up, okay? And it prevents the loss of life and suffering for the innocent kids. All right. So vaccines and immunizations are must, and it has to be enforced or educated among the people, so that you avoid such deadly diseases. And some of the drugs like antibiotics, okay, they help treat infectious diseases. Okay, many of the bacterial infections, okay, are prevented by use of antibiotics. For example, typhoid. Typhoid is prevented by antibiotics. Okay, so antibiotics are okay when we have to treat disease on a faster rate. Okay, so this is one thing. Next, very interesting concept is human immune system. So what is human immune system? If we talk about our country, okay, let us assume that our country is like a body. Okay, it is our human body, our country. India is like a human body. Let us assume that. Would you keep your borders open? Would you allow anybody to come and conquer your states? Would you allow any foreign country to settle their camps in our country or establish their rule in our country? Would we do that? No, we have one of the powerful militaries, isn't it, to prevent all of these things. What is our military doing? It is preventing any of the external things disturbing our country, correct? No, any of the external agents coming and telling that this is my country. No, we are not allowing. We are absolutely making sure that this country is protected and this country is integrated, correct? No, similarly, our body also has this one of these mechanisms, defense mechanisms, where it has the capacity, it has a beautiful capacity to recognize who is my own cells and who is not belonging to, or who is not my own. So when it has the capacity to differentiate between who is mine and who is not mine, then you can expect your immune system to fight against those which are not belonging to our body. And these things which do not belong to our body, we call them antigens or foreign particles. Okay, it might be anything. It might be dust, it might be bacteria, it might be virus, it might be fungi, it might be protozoa. Our body has this exceptional capacity to recognize them and fight against them. All right. So, for example, if you have to remember and if you have to recognize someone, okay, if you have to recognize someone and fight against them, that means you should have the capacity of memory, correct? Right? So I know who is this guy. I know this is very bad. So I need to avoid him or prevent him or fight against him. So this capacity to recognize and remember is one of the very, very peculiar, very, very, beautiful characteristic features of our human immune system. Okay. So as I said, we are very good at, our body is very good at remembering or recognizing who is our foreign antigens. And sometimes our immune system can also backfire and do not help us in certain aspects, such as it might cause allergic reactions, okay, and it might cause some of the disorders like autoimmune disease, and also it might not accept organ transplantation. You might have heard people having allergy, isn't it? So you might have eaten the food from outside. So after you eat the food from outside, you might get rashes, burning eyes, okay, or soreness in your skin, or burning sensation in your skin. So these or some people who are exposed to dust, they might be sneezing a lot, or they have watery eyes, and they have running nose. Okay, in some cases they might become asthmatic. So these are some of the cases that we can commonly observe. So what is happening here? That is the misfire of immune system. Our immune system is overthinking. Autoimmune disease, where our immune system fails to recognize who is my own cells and who is not my own cells, and they start attacking our own cells. That is called as autoimmune disease. Organ transplantation. How many people lose their lives for not getting the right organ at the right time, for transplantation? Irrespective of how closely you're related, our body is so specific in recognizing, okay, which is our own cell and which is not our own cell. It rejects a lot of these grafts. Grafts means the organs or tissues, anything that is put into our body from external source. So it rejects. So the rejection of organ transplantation occurs because of our involvement of our immune system. Okay. So who participates? Who is responsible, or which are the organs that are involved in our immune system? It is of several types. Okay. It is not just organs. In organs, it is lymphoid organs. Okay. It is in organs, it is lymphoid organs. It can be tissues. Okay. Lymphoid tissues. It can be cells, which are immune cells. It can be even smaller proteins like antibodies. Okay. So these immune cells, they originate in organs, okay, called as lymphoid organs, where they originate, they mature, they proliferate, okay, proliferation and maturation happens. Okay. So let us talk about these lymphoid organs. The lymphoid organs, where the lymphocytes are born and they mature, okay, are called as lymphoid organs. There are two types of lymphoid organs basically. One is primary lymphoid organ, okay, one is primary lymphoid organ, and the other one is called as secondary lymphoid organ. Okay. What are primary lymphoid organs? primary lymphoid organs are where the lymphocytes are born and they mature, okay, for a specific antigen specificity. All right. So this can be of two types. One of the major primary lymphoid organs that we can look up to is, one is bone marrow. Okay, one is bone marrow. Other one is called as thymus. Okay. So bone marrow is present in most of the long bones, like your, long bones of your hands, long bones of your legs, and even the pelvis. Okay, the pelvic bone. They all have this bone marrow. So the bone marrow usually is a site for formation of blood cells as well as your B and T lymphocyte cells. Okay. So usually a person, red bone marrow is responsible for this. So that is why the babies, there is large amount of red bone marrow. And as we grow up, it is replaced by this lipid-rich yellow bone marrow. Okay. So that is where the site of birth of B and T lymphocytes takes place. Okay. The second one is thymus. You might have heard about thymus. Thymus is a bilobed organ that is present very near to the heart, just below your breastbone. Okay, below your breastbone and above your heart is where the thymus is, present. But unfortunately, the thymus size decreases as you grow up and come up to puberty. It becomes very, very small size. Okay, but as at birth, it is at very large size and it gradually decreases in size until your puberty. So this is where thymus is the site for, immature T lymphocytes will become mature. Okay, they come to thymus for maturation. Okay, so that is why it is called as thymus lymphocytes. All right. So from the bone marrow it goes to thymus, and that is where it is matured. Okay, fine. Next organ is spleen. Here we have come to the secondary lymphoid organs. Okay, so here it's a bean-shaped organ. Spleen is a bean-shaped organ, and it contains lymphocytes and phagocytes. So spleen is also called as the graveyard of red blood cells. There are lots of macrophages, or you have your white blood cells that are roaming around looking for any of these pathogens that are in the blood to be filtered. So here they're also site for interaction of your white blood cells with the antigens, so that they become very specific to what they're fighting. All right. And they're also a reservoir for erythrocytes or red blood cells in fetus, whereas it is a graveyard for red blood cells in adults. Okay, it is a very opposite situation. Fine. So, and the next secondary lymphoid organ is the lymph nodes. So you might have heard the lymph nodes are present all over your body like a network. Okay, so they are like small ovular node-like structures that are, that are across your body. Here, their job is to trap these microorganisms. And as they trap these microorganisms, these immature lymphocytes, they would have come to these lymph nodes where they start interacting with these antigens, and they start learning what type of antigen it is and how specific they can become, so that they can be very active in defeating or in killing those microorganisms. This is called as antigen specificity. Okay, they get matured by more and more interaction with these antigens, and they create a very strong memory of these infectious particles that have entered our body. And the next one is MALT. MALT is also called as mucus associated lymphoid tissue, and they are located in the lining of our respiratory tract, the digestive tract, urinogenital tract. Okay, and it is a very, very important tissue because these are the tracts where we are highly exposed to the external environment. Like, for example, respiratory tract, where we regularly respire or breathe air, and the digestive tracts where we ingest food, and urinogenital tract is where, okay, our vital organs are exposed. Okay, so basically it contains, the MALT tissue is made up of 50% of lymphoid tissue that helps in prevention of any of the infections by antigens. Next one. So as I said, secondary lymphoid organs is the site for maturation of lymphocytes, where these lymphocytes, they migrate from primary lymphoid organs and they come to the secondary lymphoid organs. They interact with these antigens and they become, okay, specific cells to defeat antigens, which we call it as effector cells. All right. So now the examples, as we have discussed, for the secondary lymphoid organs are, one is spleen, lymph nodes, tonsils, okay, which are near just below your throat, okay, and Peyer's patches of the small intestine. So usually it is more and it decreases as we grow up. Okay, mucus associated lymphoid tissue, that is small tissue, and even appendix. Okay, appendix, we know them, we know appendix as a vestigial organ, but here you know that they have a very important role for proliferation and maturation maturation of our lymphoid organs, which help in maintaining the gut environment. Okay, so that is appendix. All right, so that means it's not really vestigial, isn't it? Fine. So we talked about what are the organs of immune system, and the next part we have to study is what is immunity. Immunity is a defense mechanism, and it is the ability of our body to recognize these disease causing agents and neutralize them. Okay, and to fight by fighting them, we neutralize it and protect our body. So this is called as immunity. So based on the defense mechanism of our body, immunity can be of two important types. One is called as innate immunity, and the second type is called as acquired immunity. So innate immunity is an inborn immunity. Acquired immunity is adaptive immunity. It is very interesting to understand the differences between them. So let us study the two types of immunity in detail. All right. So innate immunity is a type of immunity which we can call it as a non-specific defense. What is non-specific defense? I don't care who it is, or I don't care where it is coming from. So I just prevent it. For example, it's a common gate or it's a common barrier for anything that is of outside, irrespective of who it is. So by birth only, we are gifted with innate immunity. Correct? No. So what is that? What is this barrier? Okay. So based on different types of barriers that our body has, we can divide this innate immunity into several types. So these barriers are, one is physical barriers, physiological barriers, cellular barriers, and cytokine barriers. Okay. So let us see. In physical barriers, one of the best examples that you can think about in physical barriers is one of the largest organs that we have. What is that? Just take a guess of it. It should be the skin, isn't it? So you have a lot of vital organs that are just below your skin, like muscles, okay, blood vessels, and all your internal organs. So we have one common, barrier that is protecting 99% of our body, that is the skin. The skin has a very specific defense mechanism. It produces sweat, that is antimicrobial. Okay, it produces oil through sebaceous gland, that is antimicrobial, and it overall covers our entire body, that prevents dust or microorganisms from entering our body. Right? So skin is one of the physical barriers. Second one is a very interesting barrier, that is mucus coating. Correct? No. So take, for example, mucus coating. Mucus coating is where? In your respiratory tract, in your gastrointestinal tract, and urinogenital tract. So what do they do? For example, when you go in a very dusty environment, like you take a ride on a bike. Okay. So as you go on a ride, or when you ride on the board, you have a lot of chalk dust that is entering into your tracks, isn't it? So what do? You cough, and sometimes you get this sputum. Okay. As you get this sputum, it is filled with dust. Okay. You are given an option whether to spit or swallow. So our mucus, what it does is, it has an ability to trap all these antigens that are entering to our respiratory, urinogenital, or our digestive tracts, okay, by preventing any of the antigen entry. Next one is physiological barriers. So physiological barriers are some of the mechanism where our cells on tissues are designed to produce certain chemicals, okay, or certain biological compounds which can prevent any microbial infection. For example, it might be the HCl, which is present in our stomach, or the saliva in our mouth, or the tears in our eyes. So tears are not so bad anyways. You might be thinking, okay, tears are bad, it is sadness. Definitely not. So let's see what happens here. Take, for example, we eat a lot of food from outside. Can you imagine the amount of microbes that are present in our food, either in the water we drink or the pani puri you eat in the streets? Correct? No? So if it was not for the HCl that is present in your stomach, imagine how much vulnerable that our gastrointestinal tracts would be for any of the infections that could come through the food. So the HCl in the stomach is so acidic that it will kill most of the microorganisms. Okay. Second one is saliva. The saliva in our mouth has a lysozymic characteristics, lysozyme enzymes, which is antimicrobial, okay, and it prevents the majority of the microorganisms, in entering our gut. Next is the tears in our eyes. You might have seen that our eyes are almost moist all the time, and these tears are produced by lacrimal glands. Our tears, the pH of the tears is very, very, antimicrobial. It does not promote the microbial growth in our eyes. So eyes are some of the very sensitive organs, and it is highly exposed to the, outer environment, and that is how the eyes are protected. And the protection comes from tears, which are the physiological barriers. All right, students. Anyways, we have two more barriers to discuss about. We can carry it in the next session. We can conclude the session now. All right. So we have 2 minutes. You can post your doubts now in the chat box. And we will continue the next slides in the next coming up session. Okay. Thank you very much. I'll see you in the next class. Have a nice day. Bye, students.